back to our homestead. Today I want to share with you how we can cook with stinging nettle. So this is May, and May is the best time to harvest stinging nettle because it's still very, very young, okay? The leaves are nice and plumpy and juicy. The stems are still very, very soft. So I'm just gonna harvest a bunch. And I'm using gloves because I don't want to get, stung. Some people are brave and go ahead, rip them up without having gloves. But I'm using scissors and I am cutting. So right above the leaves, okay, right above the leaves, so it will continue growing through the season. I am going to bring it in the house. I'm gonna give it a good wash and I will show you things we can be cooking with stinging nettle. Now I'm back in the kitchen and I'm going to be cooking this wonderful stinging nettle in a very interesting but yet simple dish. I'm wearing gloves because if I touch it, it stings. That's how it got its name, stinging nettle. I remember as a child walking to the woods on the edge of the forest by the fields, and if you brush against it accidentally, you feel it and it stings for about 7 minutes, but it's harmless. It doesn't do any damage or any harm. In my culture, in my Slavic culture, Russian, Ukrainian, Belarus cultures, this was one of those first plants that would pop out of the ground early spring. See, in those regions, the winters are very long and very cold, and snow lasts all the way through April sometimes. So people often are searching for those fresh vitamins and minerals to prevent scurvy. Because, as a Russian person, Ukrainian, we stored these things, right? These were in our root cellars, the carrots, the onions, the potatoes. But greens were not so easy to come by. You could go to a farmer's market, but it would be very expensive. So I am referring back to the Soviet time where I lived back in the former Soviet Union. So people would go to the forests and fields, somewhere where there would be wild growing. Many people who lived in the villages and outskirts of town, they would have them growing in their gardens or by the tree line. So many people would actually treasure it. And as soon as it comes out of the ground in a spring, people go cut them because they're very fragrant, very plumpy, very juicy, full of minerals and vitamins, and they would bring them home and cook. So why am I talking about stinging nettle? Why is it so good for you? Well, you probably have seen my video about fermented stinging nettle tea, and it's very easy to make and it's so medicinal. It's a great remedy for allergies. If you're interested to learn how I make fermented stinging nettle tea, I'm gonna put up a link. I'm not sure which side it's gonna be on the top of the screen, and you guys can go and watch it. Also, it is in my herb playlist on my YouTube channel. So please click on that and watch all of my herbal videos. They're very beneficial for any homesteader, for any mom to know around allergy time. So stinging nettle is rich in vitamins A, B, C, and K. It also has lots of minerals, okay? It has calcium, potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, and iron. So people who have iron deficiency anemia, this is your non-hematological source of iron. It's also full of polyphenols, and it is a complete amino acid. So those of us who are vegetarians and don't consume any meat products, this has all of the proteins you need, all of the amino acids, okay? All right, so what am I going to be making today? I'm going to be making a very basic stew, potato and stinging nettle stew. So it is a perfect time right now in May to go and harvest them, bring them home, give them a good wash, and make either a soup or a stew. And today I'm going to be making a stew. I will leave all of the ingredients and the amounts in the description box so you guys can follow along. And you can make a little or you can make a lot. So things that I'm going to be needing for today's stew. Very, very simple. Very traditional to a Slavic culture. So obviously here's the star of the show, and it's stinging nettle. And you can use as little or as much as you want to. You can use the stems or you can just use the leaves. So if the stems are old stems, don't use them. They're kind of woody. But if they're nice and soft, you can go ahead, chop them up and use them as well. Okay. Then I'm going to be needing a large onion or medium-sized onion, couple of good-sized carrots, some garlic. I have 3 cloves. Okay. I have some green scallions, onions. I'm going to be finishing off at the end with that. And here is a little surprise. Most stews, Russian, Ukrainian, Belarus, Slavic cuisine, is cooked with potatoes. However, potatoes are very high in starch. One medium-sized potato has about 26 grams of carbs. So if you're watching your carbohydrates, keto or diabetic or something like that, or you want to lose some weight, these, my friends, are much lower in carbohydrates. These are turnips. Okay, turnips. And one medium-sized turnip is about 8 carbohydrates. So which is a very big difference between a potato and a turnip. So then I'm gonna using some butter. I have good quality butter here, and homemade chicken stock. If you don't have chicken stock or don't want to use chicken stock, you can use vegetable or just use a little bit of water. And I'm going to be cooking everything in a good deep Dutch oven type of thing of a pot. Okay, so that's where it's going to be all being cooking. I have my oven preheating to 400 degrees right now because everything is going to be cooked in the oven. All right, so let's start getting things ready. All right, so I'm going to be putting a little bit of butter on the bottom. Okay, just a little bit. Probably, I want to say 2 tablespoons, not much. Well, maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just going to drop it on the bottom, and that's all for the butter for now. And then I'm just going to be slicing my vegetables, okay? And you can cut them into any kind of chunk you want. You can cut them into elongated kind of spears like that, or you can cut them into squares, into chunks, whatever is easier, whatever is more convenient to you. Honestly, it's whatever you like. So I'm just dropping that on the bottom, okay? So, interesting story about potatoes and turnips. Growing up, most of the fairy tales and poems for children were written about turnips, not potatoes. Because potatoes, my friends, even though they're super popular now in the Slavic culture, they are relatively new kid on the block. Okay? Potatoes were introduced to Slavic cuisine in mid-1700s. But before that, it was all turnips. There were no potatoes. Potatoes were brought to Russia by Tsar Peter the Great, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think. And he's the one who introduced potatoes to Russian culture. But before that, it was all turnips. So turnip. So today I'm using turnip, but this can be easily done with a potato. I forgot to mention that everything has to be seasoned. Everything likes to be seasoned. So I'm just going to be seasoning with a little bit of salt and with a little bit of pepper, and that should be done to taste. And I'm going to do that to every layer. Then I'm going to be cutting up carrots and I'm going to be cutting up. I'm just deciding how big of a chunks I'm going to be making. Carrots and onion. And carrots, I'm going to do bigger chunks, I think. Okay, and I'm just putting that a second layer. onion I'm going to be slicing smaller. And again, I need to season everything with a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Okay, so if you watched my other videos, you know that I don't put garlic until the end. So I'm gonna put that with scallions to the side for now, okay? So what's next? The next piece we're gonna be working on is actually the stinging nettle. As I've mentioned before, you can use the whole thing and the stem including, or just remove the leaves and use the really, really soft part of the stem. And this woody part of the stem, discard it. That can be frozen and used later when you're making a stock, okay? Or you can ferment it and feed your plants with that fermented tea as a fertilizer. It's a great fertilizer because just like it is good for us to be eaten, it is also great for the plants as well. And in the summer, I make this wonderful, very relatively stinky fertilizer made out of stinging nettle, and it's wonderful for the growth of the plants. So I'm just removing some of these soft leaves and stems, and the woody stems I'm putting apart. And I'm just gonna take it and I'm just gonna chop it into smaller pieces, and it's gonna go into my stew as well. It has a very nice earthy aroma, and it goes very well with potatoes or with turnips. I also put it in a soup with a little bit of egg. It's wonderful. All right, so let me put that all in here as well. And again, you can decide how much you want. I'm gonna be adding a little bit more. All right, a little bit more, because I feel like it's a big portion. It's for several people, so I'm gonna be making that. So now this can be served on the side of any protein, chicken or beef or even fish, okay? So that's what it can be served with on the side. Okay, so now I'm just gonna be sprinkling a little bit more pepper, a little bit more salt, okay? I've decided to add a few more slivers of butter, okay? And I'm just gonna toss everything together. I'm gonna toss everything together. It can be done with a spoon, but since I already have gloves on, I'll do it like this. All right, and that's all. Let me take the gloves off. And I'm gonna be using very little of this broth, okay? And the reason why I'm putting broth, because I don't mind if my stew is a little brothy. So this is probably, I don't know, maybe a cup of broth I used in here. And guess what, my friends? That's it. The cover goes on, and this goes into the oven. Okay, so now it's gonna be cooking in the oven at 400 degrees for about 40 minutes or until it's fork soft. All right, let's take a look. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah, looking good. So let me test it, make sure it's nice and soft. Yep, nice and soft. Okay, so now this is the time that I'm going to be adding my garlic, okay? It's off the heat, so the garlic will get a little soft, but it will not be that pungent flavor. So let me just stir everything together, okay? And let's serve it up. Looks good. Very basic, very simple, but quite nostalgic. Okay. All right, so let me put the cover on. All right. So now I'm gonna garnish it with a little bit of onion. Oh, wait, I forgot. My Slavic DNA will not allow me to go by without adding some sour cream. Yeah, just a little dollop of sour cream. It requires it. And a little bit of scallions on top. Not just garnish, but also a little crunch. And that's it, my friends. Let it cool off a bit. Okay, let's give it a taste. A little bit of turnip, a little bit of stinging nettle, with a little bit of garlic, sour cream, of course. Let's give it a taste. Good. Potato would go here very nicely as well, but that would have been a whole lot more carbohydrate. So friends, I hope you're not shying away from cooking with wild edibles. That includes stinging nettle. So go forage in clean ecological places, harvest, bring it home, wash it, and cook it up. So friends, be encouraged and try something new.